Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you join us today on one of the most relevant topics in the current context. True to its name, it's about getting the most out of programmatic advertising. Programmatic sure does promise to transform the way we buy media by providing the technology and data to target audiences and run smarter and more efficient campaigns. But some old habits do die hard. Many teams continue to replicate the old IO-based workflows even in a programmatic environment, foregoing the benefits of these new tools and of what technology can offer. This is commonly seen whilst pursuing programmatic guaranteed media, where marketers forego data in favor of impression-based goals, which clearly does not work in favor of the marketer. So today's session will stress upon how data decisioning can improve media buying while shedding old-fashioned notions and replacing them with smarter and efficient ones, which can be applied within your organizations, be it a publisher, be it an agency, or be it a brand. But before we dive more into the topic, let me share a little about MMA with you. MMA is a not-for-profit global trade body whose mission is to enable marketers to drive innovation, enduring business value, stronger consumer engagement in an increasingly dynamic and connected world. It is the only body that brings the ecosystem together. How do we do this? We enable ongoing education through reports, white papers, skilling programs. We do several impact studies, be it research on effectiveness or be it reports on several ecosystem domains and expert areas. We set standards and guidelines. We inspire through use cases and awards. We are a 800 plus strong member network growing rapidly and an absolutely growing chapter in India with footprints for over 10 years. Our programs are designed to drive learning, assessments, networking, research, and capability building. We're also proud to share with you our growing AMP community, which stands for Accelerating Modern Marketing Practices. These are councils which are represented by the ecosystem and enable education, thought leaderships, standards in various areas, be it MarTech, e-commerce, voice, brand safety, among several others. So as I invite our panelists to open the discussion today, let me share a little about what we will be covering. We will touch upon how programmatic is transforming the way media is bought, how data decisioning can be done better and the benefits it can have, how we can deploy several effective programmatic routes to run campaigns. And whilst we open the discussion, feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. Do address your question to any specific speaker if you wish to, and so that it can be better contextualized for you, as well as share your name, designation, and the company from which you are reaching out, so that the answer can be best suited to help you with to help your query. So with that, I am delighted to introduce today's panel. We sure have an eclectic mix of experts with us today. And I'm going to invite each one of them to come and switch on their camera. So we have with us today, let's start with the women. We have Dimpy Yadav, who is General Manager at Zaxxas India. She leads client engagement and oversees the wide spectrum of clients, enabling growth and innovation digitally. She has been awarded as the Culture Ambassador at Choreos, which is Group M's most unique recognition program. So welcome, Dimpy. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you, Monica. So the delight is all mine. I'm glad to be here.
Fabulous. So next up, we have a very old colleague and friend, Archana Agarwal, who's VP Media at Airtel. Archana is a passionate media advocate with 20 plus years of experience. She has worked in several organizations like McCann, Group M, and P&G, and has won several accolades at forums like Cannes and Festival of Media. So it's lovely to have you, Archana. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, Monica.
So now let's move to the men. So we have with us Amit Yadav, who's South Asia Country Manager at Programmatic. Amit also comes with a rich experience in media and has 2 decades to his advantage. He leads the regional operations with focus on strategic partnership, sales, and acceleration of the publisher programmatic journey. So welcome, Amit. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Monica. Happy to be here.
Excellent. And now we have with us Prabveer Same, who's also a very old and dear friend, who's Senior Director at Samsung Ads in India and Southeast Asia. His journey spans over 15 plus years. He started with something very interesting, which was called the bulletin board system, apparently a pre-visual internet era, to transforming services, leading marketing, which enables marketing transformation, and to several products in getting digital marketing initiatives holistically right, wherein he's been instrumental in building a lot of these. Over years, Prabveer has been identified as a domain expert, and one couldn't really doubt that. He's recently won the Digital 40 Under 40 as well. And a big congratulations to you, Prabveer, and welcome aboard.
Thank you, Monica. Excited to be here on my favorite topic, Programmatic 2.0.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. And last but not the least, I'd like to invite our moderator, Tejinder Gill, who's General Manager at Trade Desk. Tej is also a very dear friend and an old colleague who I know is super passionate about what he does, and he loves building businesses grounds up. His current assignment entails just that. He's leading the business growth strategy, product development strategy, and some fairly aggressive and lofty goals at Trade Desk in India. Tej has more than 17 years of experience in general management and business leadership. He has been instrumental in building several large consumer tech global brands in emerging markets like India. So with that, Tej, welcome. And I'm going to hand it over to you to take the discussion forward.
Thank you so much, Monica. Thanks for being kind. Welcome, panelists. Super excited to be here with all of you. And I think, the story is the moment I reached out to all of you, I think you were very passionate about programmatic, right? Like Prab, Dimpy, Amit, Archana. And that's why I thought it'll be a very interesting topic to discuss together for the audiences. And I will probably try to define Programmatic 2.0. And what audiences can actually expect out of this session is where is programmatic today, where it was, and where it will be, right? All the 3 views. Interestingly, what happened probably 14 years ago when I started my digital journey, the entire media buying was used to happen the same way newspapers and TV were bought and sold. And actually, if you look at today, media buying has gone digital. And very interestingly, marketers never had access to data so that they could plan, forecast, place the media effectively. Now, understanding where the right audience is on the right platform at the right time actually has led to the evolution of programmatic. Like this is what created programmatic for us probably a decade ago. Now, digital marketers can always use real-time data insights to measure campaign effectiveness with real-world outcomes. Like this is where we are heading. And almost like I started, evangelizing with Prab almost like 4 to 5 years ago about the benefits of programmatic. Interestingly, our market understood programmatic as one keyword, which is programmatic guarantee, which was actually automating the way how we were used to do IO-based business. 5 years have gone by, market has evolved, it's changing. There's a lot more that needs to be done, and that is coming. Monica briefly touched upon something called as decisioning, right, which is a very important part of Programmatic 2.0. Without any further ado, probably I'll go to the panelists and we'll start having a brief discussion around, let's try to define what is Programmatic 1.0, and let's try to define the present. And, just for the sake of audiences, would love to hear a perspective from the brand, publisher, SSP, and agency on how are you guys currently leveraging programmatic in your organization. So maybe I can start with Dimpy first. Dimpy leads Zaxxas. So Dimpy, would love to hear from you. What does programmatic mean to you, and how are you currently leveraging it?
Thank you, Tejinder, for this amazing question, because when I look at it, definitely is one view, but when I look at it from an industry perspective, I would say that everybody has a different meaning about it. So when I talk about the brands, for them, programmatic would still be about, struggling to connect all their channels together, to get a deeper insights, to get a very deeper measurement together. But when I look at a partner perspective from a technology side, the challenges are still would be to connect a lot of DSPs and SSPs together and enhance and get scale, from those platforms and partners, and ensure that how, when you're working on a campaign or when you're planning a campaign, how do you stitch the channels together? So it's not just video or display, but how do you plan an omni-channel world? So I will say that programmatic right now is in a journey in India where it definitely defines very different meanings for each genre, each category from where you belong. Starting from maybe say branding to performance, every journey, every phase has a very different meaning behind it and has a very different outlook also towards programmatic. But I think what's great about programmatic 2.0 is that it addresses all of it. So be it a query from an advertiser side of a mind where you're thinking of utilizing your media monies, or be it a query from a technology partner who's thinking of evolving his entire stack, or be it a query from an agency where we are trying to stitch both the worlds together. But I think Programmatic 2.0 is understanding all of it, especially using all the pillars. So I remember, as you rightly said, that initially it was just about, the way of buying media. It started on the footprints of TV, newspapers, etc. But now I say that Programmatic 2.0 is equally important. And I'll say established enough in all the pillars, which is data for you, inventory, technology, and even measurement. And lastly, very important, especially when we have AI world coming up for us. So expertise also takes away bigger chunk with us. So these are not 4, but 5 pillars where I say that Programmatic 2.0 is very established 5 pillars, which are these.
Amazing. Thanks, Timpy, for that point of view. Amit, your entire foundation, of Programmatic is on the big word programmatic, right? How are you building your organization? How are you evangelizing programmatic with your partners? Love to hear your story.
See, the way we see programmatic is like, you said initially, we definitely see that the base of programmatic is automation, right? So there is no denying that programmatic automates media buying process, so which is basically the core of programmatic. But at the same time, it also drives efficiencies for the buyers and the publishers in terms of cost, in terms of operational excellence, in terms of transparency, and in terms of addressability. Addressability, I basically mean right from the identity to the audience solutions to cross-platform targetings and stuff. So yes, it's not just one term, I would say, but yes, there are probably parts to it which have to come together at the end of the end of the day to basically so to say define true programmatic. Now, how we leverage programmatic is the core of whatever we do. We define our mission as that we deliver superior revenue for our publishers by being the SSP of choice for the agencies and the advertisers and the DSP. So yes, programmatic sits at the core, and obviously it's driven by tech. But yes, we think that Programmatic 2.0 will probably be defined by addressability, how we as an industry come together to make it more open, and at the same time, take care of things like privacy and things like cross-platform targeting. Just giving marketers and advertisers a full overview of a user, right from, let's say, a desktop to an MWeb to an in-app to a CTV, and then giving him choice to communicate the way he wants in the right context. I would probably define Programmatic 2.0 as something like
that. Awesome, great. Archana, you lead amazing telecom brand, and you've experience with FMCG brands in the past. I think you've been one of those earlier pioneers of adopting to programmatic. How has been the journey so far with you, if you have to keep it under the umbrella of Programmatic 1.0?
So the way we looked at programmatic when we started off, and that's why when we got onto this whole piece of programmatic, was because it was basically harnessing technology to reach audiences very efficiently. And for marketers, when you talk efficiently, that becomes the keyword, the buzzword, saying, okay, it can be efficient. It's going to help me reach audiences. And it's also going to help reduce duplication between duplication of frequency between platforms. Because in the past, every platform you were giving X amount of impressions or frequency to each of your audiences. And this was allowing you to look at it across the whole plan versus just each individual platforms. Okay. However, there was when we started looking at it, we realized that there are certain challenges, right? The challenges were that we needed one unified ecosystem to reach these audiences. But while there was a promise of efficiency, there were certain other challenges like the quality of inventory. We didn't know. There was loss of control because advertisers didn't know where my ad's going to get placed. And being in the scene in the right environment, being brand safe is of utmost importance, right? Is premium inventory available? Am I just getting into the long tail because it's cheap inventory, or because efficiency was one key buzzword at that point of time, right? Is it cheap inventory of the long tail that I'm getting, and I'm not going to be not visible on all the top premium inventory which is available? While there were other benefits, like I could do a lot more audience level planning or placement level planning. The other pieces of concern were creatives, right? Where are these creatives coming? Are they going to be those really tiny creatives that my brand is not going to be visible, or my image in the creative is not going to be visible, right? So for us, that's where for us PG came in, right? And that helped address a lot of these issues of saying, okay, so it gave us a measure of control, and it allowed us to decide certain placements and at what costs and things like that. So it was giving at least Airtel the best of both worlds, because in the past, I think PG or PMP has just evolved in the last few years, right? And Airtel is when we started experimenting. So PG helped us to give the allowed us to be efficient, at the same time decide where we wanted to place our advertising, and also enabled us to cut frequency between various platforms. So that's how for us PG evolved over time. Yeah.
Amazing. That's such a good context. Prab, I'll come to you now, right? You're building Samsung ads. You have been one of the amazing leaders who have literally evangelized programmatic in the last decade or so. Like, if we have to sum up like last 10 years in that one line and squeeze it and say, this is programmatic 1.0, how will you define it for the benefit of the audiences?
So I think if I have to summarize what my fellow participants have said, and I'm struggling to minimize conflict in my mind because there were so many conflicting inputs I heard. Plus, now being on the publisher side, I see programmatic in a very different lens together. But programmatic 1.0 was evangelized to bring in operational efficiencies, which I think it has delivered for advertisers who are buying it, and publishers and partners from the supply side who are using it. But it's stuck in limbo. It has really not progressed in terms of what Dimpy mentioned, which is how do I go beyond the usual ad inventory property? How do I use better measurement technology? How do I bring audience? And to Amit's point, how do I bring more transparency in the way inventory is getting bought and sold in this ecosystem? So I feel programmatic 1.0 has delivered the promise of what programmatic bought, which is operational efficiencies, but it's now stuck in limbo. And programmatic 2.0, thanks to all the changes in the ecosystem, should bring about the next wave of adoption.
Superb. I think this is superb. Let's take a step back. I think some of you touched upon the programmatic guarantee piece, right? And we all know programmatic is evolving very, very fast across the globe. But let's take a pause and say, hey, how have people used PG historically, right? We talked about the programmatic, which is a Uber umbrella, but specifically like why people got clued on to programmatic guarantee. And I think I'll probably use the same flow. Dimpy, maybe if you can throw some light on it, as part of the WPP group, you started evangelizing, PG a lot, like in last 5 years. Why your advertisers were so keen to adopt it?
Right. So, Tej, I would say that when we talk about Programmatic 2.0 especially, we need to also look at the fact that in our country, we have a lot many channels which have cropped up post-pandemic, right? And not also just pandemic, but many other changes too, which is technology evolution coming into picture. So we know that the way OTT has been playing a bigger role here. We know that traditional TV is now becoming connected TV. That's one. Then we have gaming, etc. So many channels are cropping up. So even for advertiser, when you're deploying your media monies, you have now more options to reach out to your target audiences in a more connected manner, right? But when you plan your campaign, you would definitely at the end want to go for a cost per reach, which is very much effective for you because then that becomes the outcome, which is where I see PG is playing the bigger role here. Because when you're buying your campaign, at least what you would want here is, despite of many platform and channels right now being walled garden or on their journey towards programmatic or even evolution, they're still available programmatically. So when you're buying your media, I think the basic hygiene here then lies is that buy those channels in a programmatic fashion. A, to have a better control, better transparency of what inventories are you buying. B, when you also talk about measurement or when you talk about deploying data, there needs to be a standardization. So when you want to deploy some data basis the cohort based first party data, be it procuring third party data sets, but you would want it to be very much standard across the channel, where then PG helps you, where programmatic setup is helping you plan your campaign in a better way. Also, when you're looking at measurement, when you would now want to look at your unique reach or the overlap over the platforms, or what is your optimal frequency that you should be getting from the campaign, how you should be planning it, which is where your measurement comes and plays the role. But if you don't do your campaign programmatically, then you end up missing this loop altogether. So which is where programmatic is also helping advertisers stitch this entire world for them, where we have so many channels cropping up, but to understand how to use them in a very efficient manner and not to miss out on any other channel. Because right now, when we look at the campaign, there were initially days when campaigns were planned basis the funnel, which is awareness campaign or a performance campaign. And then we used to, pick and choose the channels. But now when you look at it, all channels really do a great job for you to build awareness for you and even to drive a performance for you. It just depends back on what kind of ad format are you choosing, what kind of strategies are you deploying, but those channels are able to help you there too. So which is where it's important that your brand safety, your measurement stack, your data, in a way how you attribute your entire media has to play a very equal and fair role. So that's my take on it, that how when you look at PG, it is not just a way of executing your campaign, which provides you better transparency, better control, but also for an advertiser, how it really brings the ROI for you. And even for partners, publishers, and technology partners, how it really helps you to gain a good share of media, I'll say budget out of it, where target audiences really were there on your platforms, on your channels, and how you really bring back that value even for the advertisers.
Wow, I can't agree more with you on this thought. Like, I think digital definitely growing, but it's also getting fragmented. So maybe you need somebody like programmatic to stitch everything together so that advertisers get a single view. Prab, I'm leaning back on you for a quick comment here because you wear a publisher hat here, right? Like, how does PG help you when you look things from a publisher perspective, right? Does it help you to get better guaranteed revenue? Like, why did publishers adopted PG in first place?
So let me throw some global nuggets first before I answer that question. And honestly, I feel PG's days are over. Globally, India is one of the markets where the PG adoption by far is the highest as compared to any other market around the world. And that's largely because we tend to buy a lot of video in this country as compared to other markets. Secondly, from a publisher lens, I think it's more a business challenge than a technology challenge, because being part of a sales organization, and Paige, you will know it better than I do, which is there has to be some predictability when you're projecting your revenue numbers for the month. And PG in some shape or form offers that, I would say, notional comfort that this campaign will deliver and therefore I will lock in this much revenue, which is a bit of a challenge in the PMP space. But in the light of Programmatic 2.0 and the light of what everybody wants to address in the forum, which is audiences, better measurement, better for audience targeting, etc., you cannot operate that in the PG space. Simply because in the PG space, you are pretty much offloading the delivery of the campaign down to the basic metric of impressions. And nothing else is happening on top of it. You want to buy 100,000 impressions between Monday to Tuesday, done. But I want to optimize the delivery of the campaign to people who have not seen my ads between Monday and Tuesday. PJ cannot help you enable that at all. So therefore, when we look at it from a publisher lens, we believe that PG is a short-term revenue affirmation numbers. But when you pivot the lens from an advertiser point of view and the buyer point of view, we feel open marketplace and PMPs are the way to go. And as more PMPs and more open market buyers start to step into this territory, which we're already seeing in Southeast Asia and rest of APAC, India is yet to catch up, and the rest of the world has already moved towards PMPs. I think most importantly, advertisers will start to realize the power of it. And once most advertisers start to buy through PMPs, the publishers will also feel rest assured that their revenue ambitions will get delivered at the course of the month or the course of the quarter. So yeah, so my view is if you're still on PJ, you're old school, you need to migrate to PMPs.
Wow, this is very great insight, Prab. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's not about any 1,000 impressions, like it's about the right 1,000 impressions, right? It's not about just targeting the same user again and again, but finding a way to nurture them over a period of time, right? So this is great context about the present and the past. Let's move into the future, and that's the most exciting part, like Programmatic 2.0, the subject of our panel, right? I'll go around the table again. I'll pick up, Archana's point of view on this. Like, Archana, you've set the foundation. Programmatic is a running, well-oiled machine for you. But if you have to do a little bit of big ocean thinking, how do you think Programmatic 2.0 will shape up, and what could be the possible components of that, right? What would you like to ideally get, in a Programmatic 2.0 version?
So I'm going to say what I would like to get, because that's what is important for an advertiser, right? All the benefits of what I'm getting on PG, which is premium inventory. I'm getting vast amounts of premium inventory. Can I get transparency? Can I get control? And at the same time, can I also get omni-channel? So can it go just beyond devices? Can I get programmatic across all media platforms, be it digital, be it mobile, be it audio, radio, television? I mean, can it just expand that whole piece? Because that's what an advertiser would want, right? And right now I'm restricted within digital itself because of walled gardens. So we don't, so while we've already moved, so we are doing we are doing PG overall, and we're trying to do PMP, and we're doing experiments, and we've learned some stuff. So some of the things that we look at when we do PMP in terms of placements of ads and things like that, because we realized sometimes we were advertising on a particular platform and PMP was also giving us the maximum impressions on the same platform. So we were actually duplicating our efforts. So we have, obviously this is a learning journey, but for me, the biggest piece would be this whole omni-channel, and how can I get, integrated research across this? Because today when I'm doing any studies, which could be a brand lift study, I'll get one separately for Facebook, I'll get separately for Google, I'll get separately for a third platform. How can I integrate all of these platforms to get me one study, which will then tell me what's the best, which platforms are delivering ROI for the brand? How are they performing on the various brand KPIs versus it being saying, okay, this is how your awareness moved and this is how your consideration moved, which is at the end of the campaign, I get to know this information. How can it be much more in the now so that I can use that information to keep making changes to the plans?
Great, like real-time decisioning, right? Is probably something, a word that we can probably use here, which can help you optimize everything on the go. And second thing is, how can you get probably a singular view of walled gardens plus open internet together?
Yes.
Because right now there are probably two versions that exist. Great. Amit, over to you, right? Let's talk about 2.0. 1.0, you talked about very important thing, transparency, right? But how does 2.0, according to you, should look like or will look like in the future?
Yeah, I think next couple of years, or maybe more than that, is probably going to be focused towards addressability at its core, in the sense that the ecosystem is going to invest and experiment with technology which basically makes addressability more so to say accessible for the advertisers. So things like alternative IDs, both deterministic and probabilistic, the rise of first-party data and ways to make it safe and secure. So data clean rooms and more sophisticated contextual solutions will probably pop up. We already have a lot of ID solutions out there in the market, right? And it's the right time for publishers and buyers to actually start testing and learning from them, and probably deciding the best course of action, what suits them and what doesn't, before the cookies or things become more difficult from targeting perspective, maybe not in 21, 22, or maybe in 23. Now we have been, from a Programmatic standpoint, we've been investing heavily. We launched Identity Hub back in 2019, which was nothing but basically an ID management platform where all publishers can activate, deactivate, run deals on, and basically pull out reporting to understand what's delivering best for the campaigns for their buyers. So that and then we basically moved to Audience Encore, which was basically a UI where the buyers can set up their deals with the segments of the data owners or the publishers who have basically built segments via the first party data that they have collected over the years. So I think what is going to happen now is probably a merger of, so to say, the ID solutions along with the data solutions or the first party data. So it's going to give you a unified view of how alternative IDs can be used to target first party data of publishers and the data owners. And that will probably unlock the real value of programmatic for the buyers and as well as publishers, because publishers still think that despite being the owners of data, they're kind of shortchanged when it comes to actually getting the right price for the segments. There's always a disconnect between how much they should be getting for the segments that they have set up versus the buyers who think that, okay, this is not as valuable as the publishers think. But I think the moment it comes on a single platform and there is a demand and supply competition, so to say, and the system basically decide what's right in terms of which is more valuable in terms of data. So I guess there is going to be a merger of what identity solutions looks like and how how first party data is viewed by publishers and the buyers, and then it will obviously eventually drive better value for both buyers and publishers.
Great. Maybe a follow-up question with you, like how do you think the entire privacy part shaping up? Do you think that will also be an important component of Programmatic 2.0?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is, so whatever solutions the ecosystem is going to build here for and it's already being followed. I think it's going to be within the purview of what is legally allowed, and at the same time also there are like self-governing rules that every organization has put in the sense that what is it that they can probably come up without crossing, consumer privacy and, within the purview of the legal, hassle. So I think it is definitely going to be within the legal purview. We've already seen that, and I don't see a reason why any partner or organization will probably try to build something which is outside of, so to say, permitted or agreed within the ecosystem.
Superb, right? Probably, I'd love to get my last point of view from Dimpy, right? She has a much wider visibility around the kind of brands. She works very closely with Dimpy. Again, Programmatic 2.0. What would be your wish list, given a chance, right, for you to work for brands? Especially, what are the 2-3 things that you would like to see in Programmatic 2.0?
So Tej, my wish list would be that entire, I'll say, media industry channel becomes like it comes out of the walled garden, that there are no more walls anymore, because then really starts the play for us, right? Then we move from PG to PMP. There's so much more that can be done. So which remains a wish list for most clients, like Archana right now just said that, when they're planning the media, they are planning to do different studies, basis the channels. And it is their requirement to club all the channels together, because for them, for any advertiser, when they're looking at reach within a certain TG or a geography, they're looking it from a perspective of a reach, right? So, but yes, this is the irony that when you're picking up platforms and channels, you have a lot many gray walls there. So this is my biggest wish list, which is, walls must go away. Everything should become open so that we're able to evolve better. We are able to, then it's not just about inventory, but also about how we can drive to outcomes. And then next stage here could be, how do you connect your offline to online world? And having said this, and my second wish list here is that when I look at business models, I would say that brick and mortar is one of the biggest, I'll say, model that stands there for all advertisers. Though digital is definitely a channel which we all are discussing here, but on the backbone of it, we definitely know that brick and mortar is there. It's the backbone for most of the businesses. But when you're planning your media, it's working in silos. And today we have entire technology, everything with us, which can merge these worlds so well together. Especially when we talk about hyper personalization, which is in the flow, especially after post-pandemic. We have seen people and their behavior changing from going to a store and now moving to online, which is even me too. I have stopped going out just out of change of a habit, nothing more, right? But then how do you find these users who have changed their habits? They have moved towards digital, but how do you connect it? Because many data strengths in terms of first party data lies to those brick and mortar stores too. And many things like people still walking to their stores, what kind of habits do they carry? How can you really personalize them, etc. So that becomes another of my wish list and a dream, where I see, advertising when you're planning it, especially programmatic and digital, but you don't leave the signals of brick and mortar or ROI for brick and mortar alone. Or when you don't say that, oh, I'm a brick and mortar brand, but how and what relevance do I have with programmatic? Because I think programmatic today has biggest relevance for them compared for any other brand, because especially post pandemic, brick and mortar brands are really, off the guard suddenly, because they need to know how they move towards digital in a very data led, I'll say, environment, where you target your audiences who had been to the offline stores earlier, but now their patterns have changed. So for them, programmatic is the ship, but how do you sail through it? So these are the two, I'll say, wish lists that I have for now.
Superb, right? I think I have just one data point to share. Recently we did a interesting research in India, and we realized that Indian consumers roughly spend 8 hours online, and out of that, like 70% is actually on open internet. By open internet, I mean anything on OTT, CTV, music streaming, online press. And I think you touched interestingly on the consumer behavior bit, like look at pre-pandemic levels. Music for us was radio, right? Which has suddenly become music streaming. My dad was used to read a newspaper. Now he's so glued onto a phone reading NDTV and ET. OTT again was television. Now it's a mirror image on the other side. And all of this is actually changing, making like irreversible changes in consumer behavior, which is a very interesting trend to watch out for. when for me, I was trying to explain programmatic to my 7-year-old daughter, and I just used one word for her. I was like, programmatic is all about choices, right? Like the kind of choices you make on a channel, the time, the media, the creative size, the platform, like all of that, everything put together is choices. What we have seen globally is that most of the programmatic spends are actually moving towards decisioning, right? And few of the big CPG brands are also talking about it. I just want to have a little small discussion on this, right? In India, still we feel, it's a very programmatic guarantee heavy market, right? But we all believe that decisioning is the future for programmatic. Maybe Amit, can you take like a couple of minutes to just define like what is decisioning first, right? For the interest of audiences. And then I would love to get different viewpoints from Dimpy, Archana, and Prab on, what are the benefits, what are the challenges, where is it heading? So we'll probably have a little more broader perspective. But Amit, over to you first. Like, can you just help us explain what is decisioning?
Yeah, sure. I think the way I see decisioning is primarily an ability and freedom to pick the most suitable audience / user based on the campaign requirements to serve the ad or deliver your message in the right context, of course, and in a real-time bidding environment. So I think the key that we probably have to pick is the buyer or the advertiser gets to make choices in terms of which user he wants to pick, in what context he wants to pick the user, and lastly, at what value, at what price value, which is the real-time bidding environment. So I guess decisioning is probably part of three broad terms, so to say. So it's real-time decisioning, it's the way you want to serve the ad and in what context.
Wow, beautiful. First, let's hear from Archana. Archana, from a brand's lens, what kind of advice will you have for other marketers, right, around decisioning, right? Probably, I would say they're already doing solid stuff on PG, which solves your objectives, but gradually testing out, trying out, decisioning, what kind of a roadmap marketers should follow?
Yeah, I think most important is experimentation, right? And you have to start doing pilots and identifying what's working for you. And I think that's how we got onto the journey of first PG and some bits of PMP that we do. I don't know. I don't think it is the PMP, programmatic 2.0, but I think we're somewhere in between the two pieces of 1 and 2.0 because we've experimented and we're learning. And I think by the time we come to where the market evolves, at least we are hoping that we've built our learning curve and we reach to a point that we're able to execute our campaigns in a much more efficient and effective manner, because it's about not only about efficiency, but also about effectiveness, because at the end of it, it's to drive brand outcomes for us, right? So I think that is the most critical part. And maybe the journey starts with maybe PG deals, maybe then starts with placements, because today we do a lot more placement-led activity versus only PG. So we do some bits of PG. I think there are certain challenges of display versus video also in terms of how do you bring those two pieces together. So you do an overall, so we do get an overall unified reach and a unified frequency. But what we're still not being able to do is bring the two pieces together. But we do some placements on display where we decide that these are the genres we want to be on, and we go ahead and then buy those genre packs and go and advertise on them. So we're moving from the PG pieces to the placement one. But I think the ultimate would be when we can get to audiences. But I think from an audience standpoint, the kind of information, I mean, right now, a lot of us is still a lot more on demographic audiences and saying we want this kind of age and this. And that kind of information is really limited because it's a lot more probabilistic. I think if advertisers can move to a lot more other kind of cohorts, which is not demographic, but maybe lifestyle or usage cohorts, right? And focus and understand, because unfortunately, if I look at the overall media environment, the offline media is only available through demographic profiling, right? That's what. How do I then connect the demographic profiling to what I can do on digital? And that's the reason most of the demographic profiling also lands up on digital also, is that's what we try to follow. Most of us try to follow. Very rarely is it that we're saying, okay, this is the kind of cohort that we're trying to look at, and hence let's move to full PMP, right? Because then the two pieces of offline and online don't match for us, for any advertiser, because of the way both of the industries are structured. So I think there is work to be done, but I think right now it's starting of experimentation is important, because once we get more first party and more better third party data, I think maybe more deterministic data will be available. Right now a lot of it is probabilistic, because I know when we're looking at some of our pieces, we realize that the way my campaigns deliver across different audiences, we might have chosen a specific audience, but I don't get even 80 to 90% reach on those specific audiences. It's actually split, because a lot of it is, there is no actual information, deterministic information available, right? So I think moving experiments and moving slowly into this thing of saying, I mean, not even slow, I think the world is catching up and we really need to start moving fast. But I think also there's a role that both platforms and agencies have to play for advertisers, because there's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of lots of terminology which comes in, and that becomes a challenge for advertisers as to what to do. There are so many platforms saying that we are programmatic and just come to us and we can give you, all of this. And I know we were initially, even to identify which is the platform we want to go with, that's the starting point in my mind, right? But I think there's a role that the industry has to play, and I think agencies have a huge role in this, of educating clients as to what are the benefits and how do you move from PG into decisioning, right? It's not an easy journey. So I think there's a role for everybody to play in this, to educate advertisers, and obviously advertisers need to experiment.
Definitely, Archana. And these kind of forums, right, where we all are discussing it from different lenses, right? It's so good to get this kind of a feedback. And I think I've picked up probably two keywords from your narrative, like experimentation and simplification, right? I think these are two very important things, like take the baby steps, let's move forward, let's try, and then probably learn together. And I think let's now look at the other two sides, right? Like one is, let's go to Prab first to get a view of what kind of benefits a publisher gets when we do real-time decisioning, right? So Prab, over to you to understand what are the benefits, for a publisher specifically when they do PMPs or decisioning.
I think one of the things it does, and probably the most important thing, is that it brings a lot of validation to what the advertiser is trying to do, which is to reach out to the right audience. What we have learned is, if your inventory is the right inventory, and when we say the right inventory, it means it is fulfilling what the campaign intended to do, the advertiser naturally will invest more behind, because at no point in time you're investing 100% on the available inventory. So from a publisher lens, the answer is quite simple. You bring your data, your targeting to a platform that we offer, which offers the right metrics of engagement, brand safe environment, ability to measure to whatever level the technology permits today. And if that is delivering the outcomes you're looking for, whether that's brand favorability, potentially an app install, and maybe a transaction on a website, and that gets validated, I think it's a synergy which needs to only progress further. So from my lens, the reason why I still continue to bet on programmatic and be so open and transparent about the method is because we believe if the inventory is right for the advertiser, the money will flow automatically. And in that entire process, be transparent, be open, be equally open upon challenges and limitation of what is available versus what is not available today. Help build the ecosystem, because revenue solves all problems. And once there's money, I think there's validation, and once there's validation, there's adoption. So that's the publisher view.
Interesting, yeah, very different point of view. Perfect. Last two different hats that probably we can wear together. One is what are the key benefits of real-time decisioning versus guaranteed, like which is PG. So Dimpy, would be good if you can throw some light on it. And then Amit, if you can help us walk through the other side of the story, which is what could be the possible challenges of adopting PMP, right? So Dimpy, will love to hear from you, and then we'll go to Amit.
So Tej, I would say that I really echo my thoughts with both Archana and Prab, definitely. And even I look at it from a similar sense, just more addition to it, I will say. When I look at PG, I also feel that it makes you, it gives you accountability of your media spends. Because, this one word I had been hearing, especially when AI was starting. So artificial intelligence could only be built in a programmatic manner, right? It cannot be done in a IO-based media dealings that we do. So that's where, I used to hear this term a lot, that when we are buying any kind of media, especially on programmatic, we don't need to drive performance because we only do awareness, right? And ad group and most of the business is awareness followed by performance. And even in India, as we know and as we look, the media budgets move heavy towards any kind of awareness business compared to performance, right? But awareness does not mean that there's no metric to the campaign or there's no output that you need to drive, right? So even an awareness campaign needs to drive performance. Now that performance can be different for you. That performance can be a VTR, can be a completed view, can be a cost per reach, but definitely there has to be performance with it, right? So I feel that PG makes your media very accountable. When you're spending your media monies onto a campaign, it is not just merely a selection of platform basis. If you're asked that why are you choosing 5 different platforms, then you might say that, okay, it bases the audiences that I feel are relevant on these available placements. But PG kills all those gray areas. With PG, at the end, I want to buy my data cohort. Okay, let's invite the partners, let's do the campaign, and then let's really deploy my measurement stack and see what kind of outcomes am I getting, even from that performance campaign. So I think that's where it really helps you a lot. Like, especially when I talk about, this new channel connected TV, there had been a lot of buzz, like how connected TV, is it a replica of OTT? Is it different from OTT? Is it just a device type for OTT? But PG is a place where you get to understand that it is a different channel altogether, a very vast, very deep channel altogether, where you see that how, despite of being new, like connected TV or gaming, these channels, but they hold a lot of, I'll say, meaningful engagements for our clients, for our advertisers. So they're really valuable, but you can only get to understand them when you're able to measure them properly. So which is possible only with the help of PG. So I'll say definitely the way, Archana follows this rule of test and learn, which is great, which all advertisers must do. But programmatic does justice there because when you're testing and learning, and with the help of programmatic, if you have proper measurement also, stacked on top of it, you can really get to know what can be your always on strategy, or what can be, let's try this again in a month's time. So that's how I look at PG trying to help us.
Great. And I think, Amit, let's wrap this up with your special viewpoint on what could be the possible challenges for brands or agencies or partners for not adopting decisioning, right?
Yeah, I think I will pick up from what Archana and Dimpy mentioned. The biggest challenge is the lack of success stories, right? We know that PMP is efficient. There are a lot of conversations happening, multiple forums, people are talking, and there are, big jargons being thrown. But at the same time, we must understand the frontline planner or the trader is burdened with the fact that he has to consume an X amount of budget within an X amount of time with a particular specific ROI in mind, right? He doesn't get time to experiment. And why he doesn't experiment? Because he thinks that if he experiments, he'll probably lose in budget, lose in time, lose in performance, right? If all of us work towards building that confidence for them, in the sense that if we have case studies, if we have bigger advertisers adopting to it, like Archana said, and there are case studies being built, I think it will give a lot of confidence to the traders and the planners to accept, that there is probably a better way of executing a campaign than just automation of the IO business. So I think that's one critical aspect. And the other thing is programmatic is always evolving, right? There are new terminologies, there is new product, new solutions coming up every day. We are at the forefront, so obviously we understand better. We are much better equipped to, adopt to certain technologies. But the agencies and the buyers, that's our probably job to make sure that they are also up to date and up to the mark, in the sense that what could probably be a better solution than what they are doing. So I suppose education and success stories would probably be two critical factors in making sure that the new tech or the new product or it is probably faster adopted and executed, and we move towards the true programmatic, or get the best value of programmatic rather than just automation.
Wow, great. I think
Can I just add? I think what Amit talked about success stories, I think it gives a lot of confidence to advertisers when they see that other brands are doing things, and they've had success. And it's not only purely efficiency, because efficiency is one aspect, but how can you bring success on other parameters like brand KPIs and effectiveness and all? I think that is a big point which he made in terms of case studies. Always helps.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
That gives you the proof point, Archana, right? That, yeah, this works and this is how it can be done. Interestingly, I think the kind of myths I heard, in last 8 to 10 months were, PG is like PMP does not give you guarantee on inventory, right? It does not give you any guarantee on audiences. These are probably, I'll call them as myths. And I think with the kind of education that we are doing today, I think it is definitely possible to evangelize it in the ecosystem, but it definitely gives more control, and it helps brands to get the audiences probably at the right price, probably at a better price than they're getting it through a PG level. And it also gives a good tight control on how they want to buy it. But just to wrap it up, I know we're running out of time. We've got 3 minutes left. Some very high level insights, especially from all of you on Programmatic 2.0. Archana, you touched upon multi-channel, super, super important. Getting a unified view of the customer is like ultra important if you're designing any media plan or trying to build a nurturing strategy around it. Amit, you spoke about merging the ID and the data, the first party data thing. I think that will be the key for 2022. And I think Programmatic is all set to deliver. There'll be like multiple ID solutions coming in the market, but it's all being like interoperable. Like, can we change? Can we mix and match and like keep moving forward with it? Dimpy, I loved your comment on no more walls. So the open internet, yes, that's the key. Like the world should be open, right? And it's like probably when internet came like 3 decades ago, we used to go to libraries to find information, and then Google opened it for everyone, right? Like that was the transformation. And I think similar transformation is required right now in the way media is bought and sold. From a publisher lens, definitely, a lot of success stories needs to be made. Publishers needs to raise their hand and come forward to partner with the entire ecosystem and say, yes, like, we get definitely better ROI, better yield from a PMP. And I think collectively, as a panel, as evangelists of decisioning and what, Programmatic 2.0, I will call it as, creating success stories is probably the most underlying factor. And would love to reiterate the 2 words that Archana used: experimentation, simplification. Let's keep taking the baby steps, and keep moving forward. I don't know if we have got time to take any questions, but I think we've got some questions on chat, which I think most of us have answered. So Monica, I'll hand over the stage to you. If you can wrap up the webinar. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for being amazing panelists. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow, that was delightful. I really think there were some absolutely useful nuggets on Programmatic 2.0. And I'm actually going to quote one of the attendees in verbatim who I can read like here, saying it live. Thanks, everyone. Really got good insights and more understanding of programmatic. So there's an endorsement on how effective the session was and how useful these insights were to all of those attending. We have, of course, a very good turnout, loads of people listening, and more so, we have a very engaged audience today. I mean, I'm sure you, the panelists, are seeing the chat in terms of it's overflowing with comments, questions, and that's so sort of satisfying to be able to cater to these kind of queries and to bring all of you in together to help the industry understand. So it's completely a very purposeful session and definitely most needed. It's evident from the amount of interaction we've had with the audience. And thank you. Some of you have made the effort. I mean, the panelists have made the effort to answer as many questions as we could live. There could be more coming in. Feel free to write to us and we'll see if we can get the answers in for all of those listening in. The interesting thing is, since this is a very complex, deep subject, we will ensure that you get a recording of this session so you can listen in and do a recap and maybe go back to some of the conversations which you want to further absorb. So that should help you. So be rest assured, all those listening in will receive a recording of the session as well. On that note, I do want to say a big thank you to all of you. This was brilliant. I learned a lot too, I must say. And we really hope to have you back soon because this is a topic which totally needs ongoing ongoing understanding and ongoing updates. So we look forward to having you back again. Thank you very, very much to all the panelists. Thank you, Tej, and to Trade Desk for bringing this together. This was really, really helpful. On that note, I'm going to just give a quick update to all the attendees. We have our next webinar coming up soon as a part of our Data Unplugged India series, which is underway. So kindly scan the QR code if you've already not registered and ensure you attend. As we heard a lot about data and decisioning, this is a series also which caters to a lot of aspects around data, including privacy, personalization, and ways to sort of manage it more effectively. So do listen into those sessions. I'm sure you'll find them very useful. With that, till we see you again, do follow us on our social media handles, stay updated through our website, and we hope to see you soon. Have a lovely evening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.